So, Sean, you are more in tuned, I feel like, with this space. I am just kind of watching to stay semi-relevant to our geek sphere and join here. If you guys don't want the show spoiled for you, just come check back in about 10-15 minutes when we start talking about Moon Knight.
I mean, or less. I don't know if we'll spend that much time on it. If we can get into how many specifics did you enjoy type of thing.
More than the last two episodes.
Okay, good to know.
Because I think I told you that 2 put me right on the fence. And I was like, I don't know about this show. And it's not that I thought episode 3 was fantastic. And my full disclaimer is, guys, I played Halo for the multiplayer. I'm not your expert. I'm not the go-to guy. The only person I'll be referencing by name in this show is Spartan 117 John. Like, that's it.
Right.
That's all I got for you. Oh, and Halsey, Dr. Halsey. I got 2 names. Leave me alone. And Cortana. Okay, are you know? Look at that. I'm an expert.
More than you know. More than you know.
Yeah. So this episode, we really dive a lot more into John, what it means for him to be a Spartan. We get a little more into the morality or possibly lack thereof with Dr. Halsey. I feel like this episode is getting more interesting with almost everybody except, forgive me, I cannot remember her name, but
Quan.
Yeah, I don't care.
Quan Ha.
Yeah, that's right. That sounds right. Every time it goes back to her and John's old war buddy, for lack of a better sense, I'm waiting for something else to happen.
Okay.
It's not that like anybody's doing a bad job. I just feel less invested, and maybe that is like the little smidgen of Halo knowledge I have makes me attached to the stuff I recognize. Halsey, Cortana, Spartan. And I'm interested in the Covenant things, and now maybe you can help me here. Is that the Flood we're seeing?
I have no idea. I thought it was, but the way they were interacting with her, because my understanding of the game, and it's been quite a while since I got the story beats of how the Flood originated, or kind of their backstory was, the Flood essentially is like the enemy of my enemy is also my enemy type of thing. The Flood was the enemy of the Covenant, of everyone. It's a virus, basically, right? It doesn't care who it's trying to kill, anyone in its way, essentially. So that's why it was an enemy of not only, the Spartans, but also the Covenant. Like, if you saw the Flood, just kill it before it kills you, type of thing. So I don't think that's her. Not that I know of, no. So I don't think that's her controlling.
Started from the Covenant, and then
it's possible. Yeah.
I don't know.
Someone else had said that this show, if you want to line up the story beats in the novels to the story beats in the games,
this seems like it's about 10 years before the first game, right?
Correct, exactly, yeah. So this is before we actually finally hop in and get to know our Master Chief from the Halo Combat Evolved, the first game.
It definitely went from like, oh wow, he's not always going to have his helmet on, to, is this man ever putting the suit on again? And
did become that.
I know if you're just going to have Master Chief running around shooting stuff and being a badass, like, you might as well just make a fan film, and this is a character exploration.
Yeah.
I also acknowledge that I think a lot of Halo fans didn't really give a shit about that. But so I'm separating myself and trying to see, am I getting invested in the story? And I'm liking it enough to continue watching. It's not blowing me away. I want to see more of what they do with John. I want to see how I know they call him Master Chief already, but also now knowing that this takes place probably about 10 years before the first game, I'm like, okay, so this is how everything gets to be what we know.
Right.
And I think knowing that helps with managing expectations.
Well, the UNSC in the games were not this like universe, galaxy-wide, dictator, like evil corporation type of thing. They were, as far as I remember, the good guys. I mean, you're playing as the hero of the, of the Spartans, the UNSC. But It's interesting that there's gonna be a switch over at some point there, so maybe that's from John's leadership, and how he guides, and maybe because I don't know if Dr. Halsey was she alive in the games. I know that there was a mission like to go find her, because Cortana's always around, but I don't remember if Halsey was actually like living or something. Someone in the chat can tell us, but I
think Pat might be our go-to expert. It looks like in the chat there.
I'm sure he will be. You can bring that up too. Those are Legolo. They're worm-like creatures. They have hind swords of covenant hunters. Interesting. Okay.
Good. Let go of my Legolo.
Perfect.
That's funnier in my head.
Nailed it.
Fired.
So
I do want to talk about Cortana. Speak of Halsey.
Yeah. Well, that so I still find that interesting though. What you said is that you're trying to separate yourself from the games and what you know. I really thought that this not following, or someone who wasn't invested in the games would actually follow this better, because you can get involved in a story just like any other show that you would watch for the first time, and you're like, I've never seen Breaking Bad. What is this Game of Thrones? You learn the story as you go. Right. You don't maybe know it ahead of time, but you're saying that it's still putting you off because it's not what you know type of thing. So you don't care about Quan and Soren and the stuff that's going to go on with like the rebellion. And I find it interesting enough. Well, I don't think it's picked up its pace. I think it's just starting. It's only the fire that's lighting the rebellion.
And I think maybe I'm getting really used to like the 6-episode format with a lot of Disney Plus stuff. And I think Halo's going to be 9. I think it was supposed to be 10, and because for whatever reason I think they had to make it 9. So maybe it's paced a little differently. The episodes are longer.
Yes.
I think I was kind of maybe just waiting for some action, but I definitely did feel myself getting more invested when they introduced the element of Cortana. And now I don't know if you know this, there are like 2 things I cannot stand to physically see. One of them, anything involving toe and fingernails getting peeled back, never. And then sharp objects going into eyeballs. There was the latter in this, and I made an audible sound. I went, no.
Mm-hmm. I was watching this on my lunch break, and when it dropped on Thursday, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, I'm just staring at the table. I'm sitting. I'm like, no. I had to start looking away. I'm like, I can't stare at my phone. I can't.
Well, I looked at it and I was like,
I can't do it.
Gonna decide not to do this, and then it just went like, and I was like, no.
It's like it's slow, and then just jabs it right. I'm like, oh god, it was so abrupt.
Didn't like it. Nope, would not recommend the needle in the eye.
No, please don't. Immediately dies and starts bleeding from the mouth and the nose. Just like, oh, she's gone. And I mean, and they do the visual up on the screen, like you see her brain like turning into mush, floating away, so it can be transferred over or whatever. But I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to do it.
Just like any other toxic fandom, I remember when like the second trailer came out, it was like the first look at Cortana and stuff. Everybody raging over the look of Cortana. I'm like,
oh yeah,
she's fine.
And it reared back up.
Yeah,
it reared back up again on Thursday.
I think she looks great, sounds great, and I already like that when we're first introduced to her, she's very computer-esque, just sounding like a typical AI. We can already see the personality poking through. Yeah. We can already see the sentience. So I think adding Cortana into the show gives me like this little bit of like a little boost in energy, a little boost in like somebody with a personality for John to talk to, because I didn't feel like Quan had a whole lot of personality.
Yeah, well, it's that combined with John taking the pill thing out of his back, right? So he's gonna
Master
be less
Cheeks
of a stone wall. You sent me that picture. So he's gonna be less of a stone wall.
We weren't sure how much of John we were gonna see. Turns out all
of John. And so we see him. I love that scene where he's exploring like Reach, just going around listening to music. He sees the dog, so it triggers the memory of kind of the whole purpose he did all this, right? So he can feel more. But it's interesting, and she straight up asking me, goes, "Is this why you wanted? Did you want to hear music? Like, differently or something like that. And she
Yeah,
goes,
I just
no,
want to hear it the way everyone else does.
Yeah, I just want to be like everyone else, type of thing. So I really liked that scene and the whimsical nature of how it all was, and you could see he was like a kid, like just like hearing or seeing for the first time. It was interesting. I like the way they did it.
I'm interested to see where we go in the next episode. Certainly, I think this was a step in the right direction. I'm hoping sometime soon we do get a little bit of Chief action. I understand doing the character stuff, but like at some point, you know, we bought the Paramount Plus ticket. We're here for a reason. Right. Give us a little bit of what we want.
Well, they said they spent like, I don't know, $10 million per episode or something. We're not seeing that in this, you know, laboratory experiment drama. We need to see, maybe that's the average when you average out all the action episodes. So I hope we're getting a little. They need to spice it up at least for an episode. Throw us into a firefight like they started the show with. Right. We can do peaks and valley type of thing, but like we need to hit a peak so that to keep people invested, such as yourself and whoever else who might be getting bored a little bit or whatever. Get us back into the action, the fun stuff.
Yeah, I like. I think Moon Knight's doing that with like each episode. You get like a chunk of story, and then we'll talk about Moon Knight, but like it's story, and then you get action in there somewhere, whether it's like a tiny bit in the middle. But like for most of these, it seems like both episode 1 and 2 end like third act with an action beat. I'm like, that's cool. It's all contained in one episode. We haven't had action since the first episode in like the first couple scenes, and I'm like, okay, so we're going to be approaching the third hour of the show with like a single action scene, please. Any last thoughts you want to get into from the episode?
What did you think about Maki and seeing like a little bit of her childhood? She grew up on this trash salvage planet.
I didn't know where they were going with that. They wrecked that kid.
Just killed him. And so she obviously sees like humans and adults, you know, from the time she was as the enemy. Origins. Right, exactly. And it's not just the Covenant actually kind of saved her from that, so no wonder she has these allegiances towards them. But do we see her? So it blew my theory out of the water that I thought like her and John were related or they were twins, you know, they were torn apart.
She got cyber swords in her fingers. Can we talk about that? Yeah. I was like, what is this? What's happening?
She pulled it. I was like, oh no, she's augmented for sure. She got some stuff going on, and she can control the Lego things. Like goggles.
No, let's call them Legos. The Lego worms.
The Legos. Yeah, we'll call them the Lego worms. So she has some stuff going on for sure. She's been adjusted throughout life, but I dig it, and I think before we hop out of this, I think maybe this episode I'd give it like a 7. This is not the best of the 3. I think I like the second one more.
Really?
Because it had a little bit more of the backstory of John. This one was ramping up, but it gives me more hope for like the next episode. We get to see a little bit more of John's personality going forward. Because in the game, he was not like a robot monster. Right. He was a big brute, you know, strong character, but he wasn't a straight up like cut and dry black and white. He had a little more personality, so I think we'll see that now. Because he still grew up that way. He's still going to have those traits, but he's going to be a little more fluid than like the other 3 of his Silver Team.
Right, and I think it's interesting where we're coming in from like 2 different points, because like 2 for me almost lost me, and it's probably my 3rd for me. I think it goes like this episode, the first episode, are a little interchangeable. I like them for different reasons. And then 2, I felt like I was just sitting through. So I'll see where 4 goes. Hopefully, I really like it.